So what's good, TMG fam? It's your boy Ellen. I'm back with another reaction. How y'all feel? Welcome back to the channel. Salute. So listen, man. Shout out to Audit. This video here is arrested for wearing a helmet in public. $250,000 settlement rejected. Wearing a helmet in public. I don't even know where, how to even receive this right now. So I gotta see the video. So if you're new, hit that subscribe button, join the fam, and let's see what this is about. Disclaimer, important read.
Welcome to Audit the Audit, where we sort out the who and what and the right and wrong of police interactions. This episode covers investigatory detainment, unreliable witnesses, and officer conduct, and is brought to us by Green Valley News' channel. Be sure to check out the description below and give them the credit that they deserve. At approximately 6:30 a.m. on August 6, 2019, 22-year-old Freedom Fendler stopped at a Walmart in Sahuarita, Arizona while on his way to work at a nearby car dealership. Mr. Fendler parked his bike.
Should have known it had to happen somewhere around the Walmart. Something always going down at the Walmart. That's what it needs to be called. Not Walmart. At the Walmart.
In Sahuarita, Arizona, while on his way to work at a nearby car dealership. Mr. Fendler parked his bike near the entrance and went into the store without removing any of his riding gear, including his helmet. It should also be noted that Mr. Fendler was listening to music through Bluetooth headphones inside his helmet. Shortly after entering the store, Mr. Fendler was briefly approached by one of the managers, but Mr. Fendler fails to acknowledge their presence and continues walking. The manager stalls for a moment, and approximately 1 minute later he approaches Mr. Fendler from behind, but he is ignored again. Mr. Fendler continued shopping for another 10 minutes, and after checking out and stopping at a bench inside the store to organize his backpack, he was confronted by several officers of the Sahuarita Police Department.
All right, so let's look at it before we go further. Now, right now, he walked in. What do you think right off the bat? Because you can't get mad at the managers because number one, you got on a helmet, nobody knows who you are. Number two, you got on a backpack. You know, they deal with, I used to work at Walmart, I'm pretty sure a lot of you have as well. They deal with so much theft that they have to kind of just, you know what I mean? And he was trying to make contact and didn't know, getting ignored, didn't know dude couldn't hear him because he had on the what's the name. So that is just like a break of communication. You can understand what the manager's trying to figure out, and you can understand the dude probably couldn't hear him, probably didn't see him. I don't know if he got in his face or not or what, but this is where we are right now. So I can see how this could possibly get ready to go super left.
Organize his backpack, he was confronted by several officers of the Sahuarita Police Department.
Hey, bud, you got some ID on you? Hey. Hey. You have some ID on you? Hold over. What's up? You have some ID on you? Yep. No problem? Yeah, management's been asking you to take your helmet off while you're walking around in the store and you're just ignoring them. What are you talking about, man? You think I'm talking just to...
Dude, do me a favor, take your helmet off. You're not going to speak with us with your helmet on.
Okay.
At this point, the officers have initiated an investigatory detainment, and Mr. Fendler surrenders his identification without question or protest. The legality of wearing a helmet inside Walmart is irrelevant. The real issue at hand is whether the officers have reasonable suspicion to believe that Mr. Fendler is trespassing, and given that the manager who called 911 said that they had asked Mr. Fendler to leave several times, it is likely that the officers would be within their authority to detain and investigate him. As with many states, citizens in Arizona are required to state their name if a police officer suspects them of committing a crime under Arizona Revised Statute 13-2412, and Mr. Fendler would have been required to state his name if he hadn't peacefully surrendered his ID. It is important to note that Mr. Fendler is detained, because this is when his Fourth Amendment protections come into play. The Supreme Court has dedicated many rulings to developing a legal framework that distinguishes between lawful and unlawful arrests, and over the years, the precedent has become more formalized and developed. In the 1968 case of Terry versus Ohio, the Supreme Court noted that, quote, not all personal intercourse between policemen and citizens involves seizures of persons, and that, quote, only when the officer, by means of physical force or show of authority, has in some way restrained the liberty of of a citizen, may we conclude that a seizure has occurred. In the decades between the Terry ruling and the 1991 case of Florida versus Bostic, the reasonable suspicion standard underwent many changes and eventually evolved into a reasonable perception approach. In the Bostic case, the court held that the appropriate inquiry to determine whether a citizen has been seized is, quote, whether a reasonable person would feel free to decline the officer's requests or otherwise terminate the encounter. Given that Mr. Fendler was surrounded by officers and was ordered to present his identification and remove his helmet, it is likely that a court would consider him detained and entitled to constitutional protection.
Sorry? Would you make a purchase?
Yeah.
Give me a receipt with you.
Dropping everything, man. Yeah.
So he said that he had music playing in his helmet.
I walked right up to him, just like I'm talking to you right now. Stood right there.
Okay.
No, nothing to do with NBD? Yes, it is. I live in a motto.
Okay.
So did you see the manager basically walk up right to your face and ask you to take off your helmet? How'd you not see that?
I saw him talking, but he's got a headset on.
I'm standing right next to you. Right next to you. I came up and I said, sir,
I thought
need
you were
to
going
stop.
this way. I didn't hear
I
you.
said, stop. I followed you halfway throughout the store.
I have discussed the efficacy of eyewitness testimony in a previous episode, which I will link in the info card above, so I won't spend too much time on it in this episode. But it should be noted that witnesses can be extremely unreliable, and the manager's recollection of events is a testament to that. First, the manager claims that he walked right up to Mr. Fendler and implied...
And we can't even verify that he got in front of him. All we see is what the camera showed us, him trailing behind him. You know what I mean? We can't see that. So right now, just like the police, they're walking up and they're getting two people's story. It's your word versus his. So how does this go? I don't understand it right now.
That Mr. Fendler intentionally ignored him. As you can see from the surveillance footage, the manager makes a subtle gesture at Mr. Fendler, but remains outside of his field of view for the majority of the encounter. It is easy to see how Mr. Fendler may have been unaware.
Yeah, he could have easily not been paying attention to you. Listening to music in your own world, zoned out. You could have easily not seen that. So to automatically assume I'm ignoring you,
aware that the manager was trying to speak to him, considering that he was wearing headphones and his view was restricted by the helmet. Next, the manager claims that he followed Mr. Fendler halfway through the store, telling him to stop. But once again, the cameras show that this statement is inaccurate. Although the manager did follow Mr. Fendler across the store, he approached Mr. Fendler from behind the second time and gave up after being ignored again. The manager...
See, that's what we saw. So is there another camera angle that could verify that? All we saw was you walking behind him trying to reach him. And if he's playing music, of course he didn't hear you. And he's being respectful right now. He hasn't done anything. So like the anger, where's the anger coming from? Dude's being respectful.
Implied
this probably didn't even have to go left from what I can see right now.
There was no way Mr. Fendler could have missed him, even with the headphones on. But the camera footage shows that it is entirely possible that Mr. Fendler was unaware of the manager's presence. Without questioning any other witnesses, reviewing any security footage, or getting Mr. Fendler's side of the story, the officers began their questioning by assuming the manager was being truthful. The officers also allowed the manager to interrogate Mr. Fendler in the midst of their investigation, which only added to the escalation of the interaction. Mr. Fendler continues to answer questions.
That's where it went wrong. Okay, now I see.
Which only added to the escalation of the interaction. Mr. Fendler continues to answer questions, and for a moment it seems as though he may get the opportunity to explain himself.
Let me ask you something. What's the purpose of keeping the helmet on?
It's just faster to get to work, man. Like I said, I'm on my way to work.
Where do you work at?
Work at Jim Clay, right there.
Okay. So you walk through the store, what'd you buy?
I bought a sandwich, a Gatorade, 2 peaches, a scrubber, I think 4 pens, and a toothbrush.
Okay.
That's it.
So you just
Basically
kept
everything on here.
Let me see it.
I couldn't
So
find a
you
basket.
keep the helmet on, you walk around.
Yeah, I do that
grab
at
all this
Safeway.
stuff.
I go to the other Safeway. I go Fry's. Except for when I go to the bank.
I mean, he knows I know because I ride. He rides.
Yeah.
It's not. It doesn't take much effort to take it off, put it back on. I mean, it takes maybe like 5 seconds, 10 seconds.
It
if that.
doesn't, man. But I've never had any issues where anyone's like, take it off, or a sign saying that you need to have it off. And like I said,
That's why the manager asked you to take it off.
Like I said, I didn't hear him. I had music playing throughout the
Okay.
show.
You didn't see me? I'm standing right in front of you.
I saw you there, and then I saw you talk. But like again, you have a headset on, so
I can't put my hands on you to get your attention. I'm standing
Yeah,
right
but
next to you.
I
Right?
didn't-
Just like I'm standing
I
here with
didn't
the
see
officer.
you come next to me.
I stood right in front of you, just like I'm standing here. I said, I need you to stop and listen to me.
But at some point in time, like if somebody's saying I didn't hear you, okay, dude. So for future reference, man, just take your helmet off. Like, why do we gotta escalate something? Why do somebody feel like they gotta get their point across and then escalate the situation? This obviously could have been nipped easily. This does not have to go any further. I don't even see no arrest needs to be made right now. You tell a dude, hey man, hey, okay, maybe you saw him, maybe you didn't. I don't know. I wasn't there. I wasn't in. That's what the officer, I wasn't there. Listen, man, for future references, bro, listen. Don't, when you come in the store, take your helmet off, man. And this is so this and this reason. And that's it. Like, I feel like this is a waste.
Ignore being kept walking. I got associates that were upset and concerned because you're walking around with a backpack with a helmet. Nobody knows who you are.
But I made a purchase.
I'm concerned about the safety of my associates.
Stop him now, okay? You're an argumentative person, and I am not the person you want to argue with. You need to take.
Whoa! Whoa! Did I miss something or did y'all miss something just then? Where did that just come from? Yo! So you don't say nothing to the manager who's going on too. You come straight to him like just that, him like that? He was answering every question respectfully given to him. Come on, man. Like, this is crazy. Wow.
You're an argumentative person, and I am not the person you want to argue with. You need to take your hand and you need to go like this and pull your head out of your. Okay? Because you're walking around in a store hiding your face. There's shooters that go on all over the place. This man comes up to you and you want to play. You got a little Senna headpiece going on that you can't stop. You need to listen to learn, not listen to reply. You need to turn that little switch off in your brain that you want to run your mouth and argue every time somebody tells you something. Because this is disturbing the peace. You can go to jail and not go to work. So what's the choice you're going to make, hardhead? You're going to quit walking around businesses with a helmet on, scaring a lot of people to where you got massive cops all over the place, rifles outside waiting for a shooter to come out? Laugh. Yeah. But that's where we're at. So pull.
I'm sorry, bro. I got zero tolerance for that. First of all, you ain't finna speak to me like I'm some child. We were having a normal, nice, respectable conversation just then. And you flipped the switch out of somewhere because him being what part of that made you seem like he was being argumentative by answering every question that was asked to him? He was asked, did you not see me? He was like, no, I didn't. He was being like, how much more respectable can you ask a person to be? Man, get out of here with that.
Pull your head out of your ass and quit arguing every time somebody tells you something. I'm telling you, look at what you're doing. You keep wanting to argue with me. I'm not the guy you want to argue with.
I wasn't trying to argue. I'm just
That's
trying
why
to
you
state
keep
my
talking.
point.
Stop talking.
Okay, fine. Cool.
This is Officer John George, and his emotional outburst did nothing to progress the investigative intent in
all.
Mr. Fendler's detainment. In fact,
all.
it hindered.
This is how stuff gets escalated. You come to work with in a bad mood. You can't have a job like this. You cannot have a job as a police officer if you show up having a bad day or you're in a mood or you're moody or the slightest thing. no, this is not the job for you.
The officer's ability to build a complete contextual narrative around the accusations being put forth by the manager. Not only was Officer George's reprimand unprofessional and uncalled for, but it also violated Mr. Fendler's First Amendment right to free speech. In the 1987 case of Houston versus Hill, the Supreme Court held that citizens have a right to voice their opinions to or near police officers, whether or not they are in the performance of their duties. Mr. Fendler was detained when Officer George ordered him to stop talking, which essentially amounts to a government official depriving a citizen of free speech. There are also implications of Fourth Amendment violations associated with Officer George's conduct as well. In the 1983 Supreme Court case of Florida versus Royer, the court recognized that, quote, the scope of the detention must be carefully tailored to its underlying justification, and that, quote, the investigative methods employed should be the least intrusive means reasonably available to verify or dispel the officer's suspicion in a short period of time. Officer George's behavior served no investigative interest, and Mr. Fendler was forced to listen to and obey the officer because he was being detained. Although unlikely, it is possible that a court could find that Officer George violated Mr. Fendler's Fourth Amendment rights by extending the length of the stop to lecture him and force him to be quiet. Many episodes of ATA have featured...
Bro, this got me hot. I ain't even gonna lie to y'all, bro. I am extremely ticked off. I'm hot, bro. This got me super hot.
Interactions where officers extend the duration of a detention to lecture the suspect. And although the Supreme Court has not directly ruled on the constitutionality of this conduct, prior cases indicate that it could arguably be viewed as a Fourth Amendment violation. Whether or not it was a violation of rights, Officer George's tantrum was completely unprofessional and uncalled for. Once Officer George calms down, the manager and the officers continue to question Mr. Fendler, but he decides to remain silent.
Thank you. Do you blame him? Do you blame him? I would too at that point. My right is to remain silent at this point now. You ruined that whole respectable conversation we was having.
Do you have his info? I was gonna see if you want to trespass.
Yeah, I do want to trespass. I don't want that.
Okay, so officially being trespassed from the store, don't come back to Walmart. If you come back to Walmart, manager, anyone sees you, you get arrested for that.
And we don't have a picture taken with a helmet.
Well, you know when he walks out, it'll be on the camera when he walks out. What's your telephone number?
Do I have to provide that, sir?
Yes, you do.
Alright. I gotta look it up on my phone.
What else is in that file?
Your phone.
Alright, give me a telephone number. Now keep in mind, if you come in here again, you'll be arrested and you'll be booked for trespassing. And understand, what he's telling you, you're trespassing from Walmart, it's a national system. You're not just trespassing from this Walmart, you're trespassing from all Walmarts and Sam's Clubs. Okay? So understand that.
Wow.
If something happens and you get pulled over or stopped at one of them other ones for wearing your helmet for stupid stunts like that, you'll find yourself sitting in county.
Wow.
Didn't have to be like that. But how many other people you see going to business walking around with a motorcycle hung out?
Especially with the shootings in Daytona and freaking El Paso just happening.
Your goal is
People are going to be on edge, they're going to be scared, they're going to be worried, okay? You got someone that walks in wearing a motorcycle helmet and has a backpack with military camouflage, they're going to think otherwise.
And that's fine. We get that. If that was stated to him, cool. He understands. It's the whole escalation, the way you talk to him. Why did it have to go that far? That's cool. The manager's reasoning for trying to get his attention is all perfectly fine. Nobody had an issue with that.
They're not going to think it's just some law biases. You see how that looks? It's like common. It's kind of like common sense. I mean, like I said, he rides, I ride. I always take my helmet off. I mean, does it really save you that much time? Today it didn't.
Are you on medication?
How old are you?
Mental health issues or anything?
How old are you? Tell me how old you are. Tell me how old you are. Okay, you're acting like a little child. How many times did you ask him to leave?
At least 5, 6 times. Just like he's ignoring you. I walk half the store with him, following him right to the side to ask him. After I told him many times that officers were coming at him.
Hey, I feel sorry for this dude, bro. I literally feel horrible. He had to go through this. You know what I'm saying? I get the manager's reasoning, everything, but I feel horrible he had to go through this, bro.
I'm thinking about it, especially the way he's his act is. He asked him 5-6 times to leave, followed him around the store.
I would say so. I'd say we missed the threshold. Why not?
So,
Especially the current behavior.
You asked him how old he leaves the store?
5 or 6 times. Walk right next to him, just like we're walking right now.
You're under arrest for trespassing.
Mr. Fendler was arrested, charged with disorderly conduct, and taken to the Pima County Adult Detention Center, where he was detained for 17 hours. Following the encounter, Mr. Fendler's charges were dismissed, and he went on to file a lawsuit claiming that he was illegally searched, falsely arrested, maliciously prosecuted, and publicly defamed by the department. According to the Green Valley News, as of September 1st, 2020, both the town of Sahuarita and the Sahuarita Police Department deny any wrongdoing and have moved to dismiss the lawsuit. A judge has yet to rule on the dismissal, and Mr. Fendler's lawsuit is still ongoing. Overall, the Sahuarita officers get an F for neglecting to conduct a thorough and legitimate investigation, remaining hostile and condescending throughout the interaction, and escalating what could have been a trespass warning into an arrest for disorderly conduct. The officers utterly failed to conduct an investigation into what actually took place, and essentially arrested Mr. Fendler for being quiet after being told to do so. That being said, the societal context of Mr. Fendler's actions cannot be ignored. And although the Walmart managers may have overreacted, their fears were somewhat justified.
Right.
This interaction took place just days after the El Paso Walmart shooting that
And that's what we said. That's what I said. Understandable while the manager was walking around and trying to get his attention. All of that is understandable. It's this officer right here on the screen that took it somewhere totally different.
claimed the lives of 23 individuals and injured 23 more. So it is somewhat understandable why they would feel uneasy. However, that does not excuse the manager's lying or the conduct of the officers. Condescending lectures are not part of the mission of a police stop, and there is a legitimate argument to be made that officers who extend the length of stops to scold or conversate with suspects are violating their Fourth Amendment rights. At the end of the day, this entire happenstance was the result of a miscommunication, and no one's livelihood was threatened by Mr. Fendler's actions. But instead of acting as neutral arbitrators on behalf of the public, the Sahuarita officers chose to exaggerate the gravity of wearing a helmet inside a store and effectuate a baseless arrest. Nothing that the officers did made their community a safer place, and the fact that the charges were dropped demonstrates that their actions were unfounded. Mr. Fendler gets a B+, because although he could have exercised his right to remain silent more tactfully, he remained calm and compliant throughout the interaction, made a legitimate attempt to establish a productive dialogue, and followed up this encounter with the proper legal action. Mr. Fendler was outnumbered from the start, and there likely wasn't much that he could say or do to avoid being arrested, especially considering that he wasn't saying anything when the officers decided to arrest him. Mr. Fendler made a genuine effort to dispel the officers' suspicions, but once Officer George finished his condescending tirade, Mr. Fendler shut down, and rightfully so. While Mr. Fendler did eventually decide to remain silent, he neglected to verbally acknowledge that he was invoking his Fifth Amendment right, and the moment he chose to begin his silence could have been more calculated. I commend Mr. Fendler for his ability to maintain his composure throughout this encounter and for following up with the proper legal action. It will be interesting to see the outcome of Mr. Fendler's lawsuit, but it may be some time before a conclusion to this encounter is reached. Let us know if there is an interaction or
Yo, if y'all have any updates, anybody know, because a lot of y'all be quick on the draw with the updates on certain cases when we check them out, bro. This is one. Let us know, man. Where is he? I feel super sorry for that dude. He had to go through that, bro. That is just uncalled for. That was uncalled for. Like, and that officer, if he remains on the force, he's one that you could see something eventually down the line going extremely wrong that they could have prevented. They can clearly look at this tape, look at this footage, and see that if they don't nip this in the bud with him, they're going to be in another lawsuit that they can't get out of, or they're going to be in another situation to where it's going to be bad on their department, period. It's going to be bad. Yo, I am extremely furious. That's crazy, man. Listen, man, y'all get at me in the comment section and let me know what y'all thought of this. It's your boy L, man. Until next reaction, I'm gone. Peace.